I am honored to be with you today at this unique and historic event, the largest and most widely attended gathering of tribal leaders in our history. And I am so grateful to many members of Congress who could join us today, along with several members of my cabinet who will be participating in this conference today. You know, a couple of summers ago, I had the opportunity to visit the Crow Nation in Montana. And while I was there, I was adopted into the nation by a wonderful couple, Hartford and Mary Black Eagle. And I know what they're saying now. Kids grow up so fast. Only in America could the adoptive son of Crow Indians grow up to become President of the United States. It's now been a year since the American people went to the polls and gave me this extraordinary privilege and responsibility. And part of what accounts for the hope people felt on that day, I think, was a sense that we had an opportunity to change the way Washington worked, a chance to make our federal government the servant not of special interests, but of the American people. It was a sense that we had an opportunity to bring about meaningful change for those who had for too long been excluded from the American dream. And few have been more marginalized and ignored by Washington for as long as Native Americans, our first Americans. We know the history that we share. It's a history marked by violence and disease and deprivation. Treaties were violated. Promises were broken. You were told your lands, your religion, your cultures, your languages were not yours to keep. And that's a history that we've got to acknowledge if we are to move forward. We also know our more recent history, one in which too often Washington thought it knew what was best for you. There was too little consultation between governments, and that's a major reason why things are the way they are today. Some of your reservations face unemployment rates of up to 80%. Roughly a quarter of all Native Americans live in poverty. More than 14% of all reservation homes don't have electricity, and 12% don't have access to a safe water supply. In some reservations, as many as 20 people live together just to get by. Without real communication and consultation, we're stuck year after year with policies that don't work on issues specific to you and on broader issues that affect all of us. And you deserve to have a voice in both.
Because historically, you know, the man always goes out and hunts and works, and it's kind of it takes a toll on an individual's pride, on a man's pride, not being able to do that because the opportunity is either limited or not there. And so, when I bring forward to you about how all of this plays in, you know,
I know that you may be skeptical that this time will be any different. You have every right to be, and nobody would have blamed you if you didn't come today. But you did, and I know what an extraordinary leap of faith that is on your part. And that's why I want you to know that I'm absolutely committed to moving forward with you and forging a new and better future together. It's a commitment that's deeper than our unique nation-to-nation relationship. It's a commitment to getting this relationship right so that you can be full partners in the American economy, and so your children and your grandchildren can have an equal shot at pursuing the American dream. I promised you we'd host this conference to develop an agenda that works for your communities, because I believe Washington can't and shouldn't dictate a policy agenda for Indian country. Tribal nations do better when they make their own decisions. That's why.
The Cabo Tribals instances, if we were allowed, if we were given the funding, if we were allowed to take the leasing from step one to the end, the nth degree, we wouldn't have people waiting years to get the leases done. We wouldn't have the problems of lack of housing on a reservation, or or lack of leasing on our reservation. I think if we were to put our heads together in affiliated tribes, we could create a group within our own organization to where the tribes with the capabilities, like I think the Kalos have, could assist other tribes in becoming independent in that fashion. So I think we'd be willing to help each other, and I think that's what affiliated tribes is all about.
I want to be clear about this. Today's summit is not lip service. We're not going to go through the motions and pay tribute to one another and then furl up the flags and go our separate ways. Today's sessions are part of a lasting conversation that's crucial to our shared future. In the final years of his administration, President Clinton issued an executive order establishing regular and meaningful consultation and collaboration between your nations and the federal government. But over the past 9 years, only a few agencies have made an effort to implement that executive order, and it's time for that to change. After all, there are challenges we can only solve by working together. And we face a serious set of issues right now. We face our economic crisis, in which we took bold and swift action, including in your communities. We allocated more than $3 billion of the Recovery Act to help with some of your most pressing needs, like rebuilding and renovating schools on reservations across the country. We provided more than $100 million in loans to spur job creation in tribal economies. And we made sure my budget included significant increases in funding for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Indian Health Service, and other agencies that have critical roles to play in your communities. But if we're going to bring real and lasting change for Native Americans, we need a comprehensive strategy, as I said before. Part of that strategy is health care. We know that as long as Native Americans die of illnesses like tuberculosis, alcoholism, diabetes, pneumonia, and influenza at far higher rates than the rest of the population, then we're going to have to do more to address disparities in health care delivery. More than half of all Native Americans and Alaska Natives, especially those in remote areas with limited access to care, rely on the Indian Health Service for their most basic needs. And that's why we invested $500 million on the Recovery Act in strengthening and modernizing the IHS. And that's why my budget proposes an increase of 13% in IHS funding. When it comes to creating jobs, closing the opportunity gap, and leaving something better for our future generations, few areas hold as much promise as clean energy. Up to 15% of our potential wind energy resources are on Native American land. And the potential for solar energy is even higher. But too often you face unique hurdles to developing these renewable resources. And that's why I'm very proud. Under Secretary Salazar's leadership, we're looking for new opportunities to ensure that you have a say in planning for access to the transmission grid. We're streamlining and expediting the permit process for energy development and transmission across tribal lands. We are securing tribal access to financing and investments for new energy projects. And thanks to the Recovery Act, we've established an energy auditor training program that could prepare Native Americans for the green jobs of the future, and that's going to be absolutely important. The future of Indian country rests on something more: the education we provide our children. We know that Native Americans face some of the lowest matriculation rates and highest high school and college dropout rates. And that's why the Recovery Act also included $170 million for Indian education and $277 million for Indian school construction. And that's why my budget provided $50 million in advance funding for tribal colleges that are often economic lifelines for a community. Students who study at a tribal college are 8 times less likely to drop out of higher education. They continue on to a 4-year institution at a higher rate than students in community colleges. And nearly 80% end up in careers that help their tribal nation. And none of our efforts will take root if we can't even guarantee that our communities are safe places to learn, safe places to grow, safe places to thrive. And on some reservations, violent crime is more than 20 times the national average. So you will not be forgotten as long as I'm in this White House.